So let's talk about something that I know drives pet owners absolutely crazy. That question, why won't my pet's diarrhea go away? It's frustrating, it's worrying, and today we're going to get to the bottom of a really common cause.
I mean, have you been there? You're doing everything you're supposed to, you switch to a bland diet, you make sure they're resting, but that upset stomach just keeps coming back. You start racking your brain, right? Did they get into the trash? Is it something more serious? Well, what if I told you the culprit could be a tiny invisible parasite? Let's dive into that.
Okay, so this little troublemaker is called Giardia, and it's important to know what it is and what it isn't. It's not a worm, it's not a bacteria, it's actually a microscopic, single-celled organism, a protozoan. And believe me, this thing is everywhere. It's found all over the globe, and it's a super common reason for gut problems in our pets.
So you're probably wondering, how can something so tiny cause such a big mess? Well, I love this analogy. Think of Giardia as these tiny, unwanted squatters. They basically set up camp in your pet's gut, specifically the small intestine. They latch on and just wreck the system's ability to absorb nutrients and water like it's supposed to. And that's what leads to that awful, persistent diarrhea.
Okay, so who should be most on the lookout for this? While pretty much any pet can get Giardia, some are definitely at a higher risk. Puppies and kittens, for sure. Their little immune systems are still figuring things out, so they're an easy target. And then you have pets in group settings. Think kennels, shelters, doggy daycare, where it can spread pretty easily. Oh, and of course our adventurous pets. You know the ones, they see a puddle, a stream, or a pond and think, ooh, a tasty beverage. Yeah, those can be sources of Giardia.
And just to give you an idea of how common this is, some surveys have found Giardia in up to 39% of dogs in shelters and even in regular homes. Let that sink in. Almost 40%. That's a huge number. So we're not talking about some rare exotic disease here. This is something that could literally be in your own backyard.
Okay, let's talk about what you should be looking for at home. We're moving into recognizing the signs. The actual illness that Giardia causes is called Giardiasis, and honestly, the signs can be a little tricky.
The number one sign is, you guessed it, diarrhea. But it's not just any diarrhea. It can be persistent, or it can be the really frustrating kind that comes and goes. The stool itself is often soft or watery. Sometimes it looks kind of pale, and I'm sorry to say this, it can have a really foul smell. You might even notice it looks greasy or has mucus in it. Beyond that, keep an eye out for extra gas, maybe some occasional vomiting, or even weight loss even though your pet is eating just fine. For the really little ones, the puppies and kittens, it might just be that they aren't growing quite right.
Now this next point is absolutely crucial, and it's probably the trickiest thing about Giardia. A whole lot of infected pets show zero symptoms. None. They can be walking around feeling fine, but acting as silent carriers, shedding the parasite into the environment. And that, right there, is why it spreads so easily at places like dog parks or daycares.
Okay, so you've seen some signs, you're worried, and you've made the right call. You're going to the vet. Let's demystify what that visit is going to look like. The great news is, figuring this out is usually super simple and not at all stressful for your pet. It all starts with something you're probably familiar with. A stool sample. A fresh one is key. From there, your vet has a couple of ways to check for Giardia. We can do what's called a fecal flotation, where we actually look for the parasite's tiny cysts, you can think of those as its little eggs, under a microscope. Or there's a really cool rapid test we can do right in the clinic. It's called an antigen test, and it's great because it's super sensitive at detecting proteins from the parasite.
But, and this is a big but, diagnosis can be tricky. Here's why. A pet doesn't shed those little cysts every single time they go to the bathroom. We call it intermittent shedding. So if your vet asks for more than one sample, maybe over a few days, that's the reason. A single test might come back negative just by bad luck. Multiple tests give us a much better chance of catching it if it's there.
All right, let's get to the good news, which is the best part of this whole story. Giardiasis is totally treatable. Once we have that diagnosis, we can get your buddy on the path to recovery and back to their old self. So, a really successful treatment plan is like a 1-2 punch. First, we've got the medication. Your vet will likely prescribe an anti-parasitic drug, something like Fenbendazole, to get rid of the parasite from the inside. But, and I can't stress this enough, the second part is just as important, and that's hygiene. We've got to clean up their environment to stop them from just getting reinfected all over again. So what does this deep clean actually look like? Well, it's all about getting rid of those stubborn cysts. You'll want to give your pet a good bath, especially near the end of the treatment, to wash any cysts off their fur.
Throw all their bedding, toys, and bowls into hot soapy water or the dishwasher. In the yard or litter box, you've got to be really on top of picking up poop right away. For surfaces, you can use a good disinfectant. And here's my favorite pro tip. Sunlight and dryness are Giardia's worst enemies. So if you can let areas dry out completely in the sun, that's a fantastic free way to help kill off any remaining cysts.
Look, it does take a little bit of work, but when you combine the medicine and the cleaning, the outlook for your pet is excellent. They really can get back to being their happy, healthy, tail-wagging selves.
Okay, so let's boil this all down. What are the most important things to remember?
I know what you're thinking. It's the question that pops into every pet owner's mind as soon as they hear about this. Oh no, can I get it from my pet? And that's a totally fair and important question to ask.
And I have some good news for you. The risk is really, really low. For the most part, the type of Giardia that infects dogs and cats isn't the same type that makes people sick. It's not totally impossible, but it is super rare for it to jump from your pet to you. That said, you know the drill. Good hygiene, like washing your hands after picking up poop, is always a smart move.
So if you remember just one thing from our chat today, please let it be this. If your pet has diarrhea that just won't quit, don't just brush it off. Don't just assume it's a simple upset stomach that'll pass. It absolutely warrants a conversation with your vet.
And of course, I have to say this is all for educational purposes. It's not a substitute for seeing your own vet. They are your absolute best resource for your pet's health. So if you're worried about anything at all, please pick up the phone and give them a call. They're your partner in all this.